let me ask you, why? Why have you agreed to pay all these bills? Why have you agreed to this debt? Why have you agreed to live this life of overconsumption? And this message may not be for everybody, but this is my grandfather right here, Robert Jones, born in Texarkana, Texas, grew up in Longview, Texas, Harrison County. And before he passed last year. May God rest his soul. Um, we talked a lot. I have a lot of recorded conversations about how he grew up, how life was when he grew up, because he grew up in Longview, working on a farm and also working as a railroad contractor in East Texas. And he would tell me life on his grandmother's farm, my great great grandmother, Nanny Jones, who had 160 acres in East Texas. He would talk about life growing up. Nanny Jones obviously was a big inspiration in his life. Her husband, my great great grandfather, Solomon Jones, had passed before my grandfather was conscious of things. But Nanny Jones, Solomon Jones grew up in Harrison County, owned land in Harrison County, lived a sustainable life in Harrison County, Texas. And through these stories and through these pictures that my grandfather painted in my head, it influenced me to figure out how do I move more toward a lifestyle that is like my grandparents, like my great great grandparents, excuse me, and be more indigenous. Like my tribal sister says, Ria, how do we get to a modern indigenous lifestyle? Living, because my family's indigenous to this land. So how do we get more to a lifestyle where we paying less bills, less consumption, more simple life, to where we kind of control our life a little more than the average person out here? Here's the deed. I'll get more into this on other videos because, yeah, there was oil and gas on the land, but I just want to show you here on this deed from Nanny Jones, 161 acres. So, a lot of people get on YouTube and they just talking this and that, but they really don't show concrete proof. So I just try to be, as real as I can with the proof here. But what Nanny Jones has inspired me to do in my life is to focus on more on living off the land, living more self-sustainable. She had no electricity. They just had a well and they made everything work. You know what I'm saying? Living off the land. And what I noticed through the stories that my grandfather told me was when they all was living there, because it was four of his uncles and it was his father and three of his uncles and their families, and they all lived on this 161 acres. They all were farming. They're all working together, coming together, making the crops work, doing what they had to do, sticking together as family out there in Harrison County, Texas. And then when people moved to Richmond, when they moved out to Northern California, Contra Costa County, Alameda County, all over Northern California to work on the shipyards in the 40s, because that's what happened. Everybody moved from East Texas out to Cali to work in the shipyards for the war. I noticed the division started happening. Because guess what? The division can happen in families when we are not dependent on family. When we can just go to the grocery store and buy groceries, and we don't have to come together and pick those crops and grow those crops and put time and energy and effort into having food, we start to take things for granted. So then when auntie or uncle or who this says that or brother says this, we don't agree with it, we don't have to deal with them anymore, because guess what? We don't have to pick crops with them. We don't have to grow food with them. We can just go to the damn grocery store, and that's the end of that. We won't talk to them, and okay, they're out our life. We disagree with them. Sort of like today with the political scene. Oh, he votes for them, he don't like them. Okay, well, I'm not talking to them. So it's kind of, I'm trying to compare it to something in the modern day today. So I realize how grocery stores kind of broke up family structures, not directly, but indirectly, because we don't have to come together to, work the crop, work the yard, work in the garden, and make things work as a family, So I'm saying all this to say is, what is important to you in your life? Is paying bills important to you? Is family important to you? Is being self-sufficient important to you? And I had to reflect through all these stories he told me, and I come to the conclusion, no, Paying bills is not that important to you. And this is why I live a more indigenous lifestyle, off-grid, simple life, trying to grow my crops. I'm working on that. That, taking a little time, but trying to get to a more simpler life where I'm not so dependent on the grocery store, dependent on the government, dependent on this. The only thing we should be dependent on is our loved ones and our family. That's about it. In my opinion, this is all my opinion, but I want you to, listen to this message and hopefully you reflect on what's important to you. Is paying those bills really that important? Is having all the gadgetry really not that important? You know what I'm saying? So thank you, Nanny Jones, for influencing my life. And I'm just trying to live more indigenous and live in the spirit of my ancestors. And I'm talking about the positive spirit. A lot of so-called black people, we always want to talk about the horror stories of this and that and that and that and whatever and all these stories. Some of them, I don't think most of them can even be confirmed because I've talked to all my grandparents. None of my grandparents have ever been able to tell me some racist story, but I'm not saying it didn't exist. I'm just saying my family, my grandparents cannot tell me about that because they don't experience that. So we have to figure out what is our experience, what is our grandparents' experience, and even if it's bad, how do we just focus on the good things? How do we focus on the positive outcomes and the good lessons that they tried to lay in front of us to keep us together as families? You know what I mean? To keep us together as a unit, to focus on self-sustainability. So, just reflect. I just want you to reflect as I'm reflecting. We just have to figure out what is important. And I'm going to be honest with you. I really don't think bills are that important. So you have to figure out today, after you watch this video, what can you do to reduce one bill? What can you do to reduce or eliminate two bills? What can you do to get off the dependency? How can you just maybe grow some tomatoes in your backyard or whatever it may be? Man, it's indigenous living. Thank you so much for being here. And we just going to keep it living in the spirit of our ancestors, man. We give thanks.